G'day and welcome back to the shed. In part one I got to the point where the speaker here hopefully is in reasonable working condition, although it's not pretty. I got the dial fixed up, I put some work into the big dropping resistor that compensates for different line voltages, and I've been tracing through the circuit. I'm nearly at the point where I've got a complete circuit diagram, but I want to check it a few more times before I'm willing to make that public. It's become clear that it's a hot chassis design, so I'll have to take due precautions with that. I haven't worked on a TRF radio before, so a lot of that's new to me as well. The valve types are new to me, but it's fairly straightforward. Anyway, my cloth covered wire has turned up in the post, and it's quite nice stuff. I got this from Evatco, and it's about the same gauge as the wire in the radio, and I've got some similar colours, so I think that should go down well. I'm going to start with the output transformer wiring and the heater string because they're pretty badly perished, and I'll change the capacitors as I go. I've decided at this point not to restuff all the capacitors. If I get it working well, I'll consider going back and doing that. I'm not going to throw them away, but I would like to see if I can get the set working first, and if I do, then I may go back and do that. So let's get on with it. I thought I'd start with taking out this big electrolytic package here, and that'll give me a little bit more room to work in, particularly because the heater string wires and the output transformer wires go underneath it. A bit hard to get at with it there. It is a big lump for two 8UF caps, and it'll probably need a good clean up. I don't know if I can make it presentable or not. I hope I can. Don't know if I mentioned I made this little stand up for it. In the past I've tried making various designs of chassis stands that will fit or anything or almost anything, but in every case I've immediately found another chassis that just doesn't work with it. There's just too many differences between chassis and in size and in design. This one has open ends, which makes it very difficult. I've had to cut a notch in these pieces of timber here and put a brace along the back. This one here bolts through a random hole in the chassis, and it's supported by this. You just have to make it up as you go along, I think, with these things. So let's see if we can get this cap out. It's held together with this electrical tape, and it looks pretty corroded on top there. I don't know what I can do with that. I think I'm almost tempted to ditch it, you know. I'll take this tape off it and just see what's underneath. It does look as if it was original though, I guess. Okay, so that's what it was mounted on. And dry electrolytic condenser, that was covered up by the tape before. Dry electrolytic condenser, guaranteed for 12 months. I wonder if it's got a date on it. That might help me to date the radio. But there's some printing there, but it's too dirty, I can't read it. There may have been something on the top there, but that's corroded away. Anyway, it's just got two common earth leads, and they're paralleled up. So I think it says somewhere 8UF. Yep, capacity 8 and 8 MFD microfarad. I can't read the working voltage. There might be a date on this once I've cleaned it up. That'll be interesting. Well, I'm about halfway through the recap. I've done basically this side of the chassis. I've just replaced them with these amber caps and electrolytics as they were. I still don't know what I'll do about possibly restuffing these to make them look a bit more original, But for the moment I want to get it working, and that's what I'm going to do. This new wire I bought is lovely stuff. It's the insulation will pull back from the wire so that you can solder the end of it. You don't even need to strip it. But when you do have to strip it, it's pretty easy. And I've found that I can cut a piece of wire off and use the insulation on that stuff as sleeving. So I've used that on this and this and this. Most of the components in here originally did have sleeving on them, so I've decided to replace it. This one has got the wire sleeving I put on it. This is a piece of original. There's not a lot of difference. So it should end up pretty neat. I've noticed there was some very ordinary terminations on the chassis, which leads me to think it wasn't professionally built. I'm wondering if it may have been a kit or something like that. I don't know if they were a big thing at the time. The components are an interesting mix. This one here is electric BI, electrolytic condenser, 560 volts peak, 8 UF, made in England, and it says E9. I don't know if that's a date code. If it is, then it could be 1939. This one here looks like it might be later. B1 BI, British Industries something, I don't know. 25 UF, January 46. Now I'm pretty sure this set was late 30s, from the valve types, etc. All these capacitors, by the way, have a solder terminal on here, and the leads have been soldered to them. They must have just come with a terminal there, which is unusual in my experience. This one here is the same. WSEGO, I think. British, 0.01, 400 volts DC, and it again has solder terminals on the underside. And all the caps in this set are, well, no, not all of them. Some of them are axial, conventional ones. Most of the 0.1s are these things, Sator, made in Austria. 0.1 microfarad, that is, tested to 1500. It's got 395. I haven't found anything that means anything to me in terms of being a date code. This one's well and truly melted. That had the incoming power line next to it, and it's melted out this way, so perhaps it wasn't in a good state anyway. But I'll continue with it. The only thing, I've just replaced one of the wires through to that dropping resistor on the top, so I'll have to turn the chassis upside down and solder that on, and also one of the power leads to the on-off switch. But I need to replace that switch anyway, so I won't terminate that just yet. I've managed to coax the wire up through the chassis and onto the bottom of this dropping resistor, and I'm just about to tack it on there. That seems to be taking all right. I'll just get a little bit more on that. That should be fine. It seems well and truly melted into the existing solder. I was talking earlier about the fairly ordinary soldering on this set. This is a case in point. This cap, this is how it was in the radio. It's not even making proper contact. So that would have made for some interesting reception at times, I would imagine. Well, I've made a little bit more progress on the recap. Few interesting things to note about this chassis. Every piece of wire and every component has sleeving on it, even if it's not in danger of shorting or anything. I'm replacing them as I found them, so I'm putting sleeving on everything as I go, just to preserve the original build, I suppose. Couple of interesting things though. There's been some quite creative wiring in here. This one here, now this is the plate to grid capacitor, and that would have been interesting. I suppose it worked. It must have done, or they wouldn't have kept the set in use. I don't know. All the resistors are well held off above the chassis. In some ways it's nicely put together, and in other ways some of the soldering is very agricultural. So I'm wondering if maybe it was repaired at some time by someone without much soldering skill, or whether it was maybe a kit to start with. But some of the soldering is quite good, so I don't think that would be the case. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. I wish I had more information about this little radio. It's an interesting unit, but a lot of mysteries as well. I'm just about to replace this here, and I think that says 0.0001 microfarad. I hope there's not a decimal point in between the first zero and the rest. It seems rather large for that, but then that's typical, I guess, for the age of it. I normally use pigtails when I'm replacing capacitors, but in this case I'm reworking all the joints because so many of them need it. Anyway, I'll come back when I've finished this, and we'll be almost ready to test fire it up. I'll still have to refit the speaker and the valve, the globes to the heater string, but yeah, we'll get there, I think. I'm beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, very well may not work when I fire it up. I've been very careful to, when I'm replacing the caps, not to make any mistakes. I've only got my own hand-drawn circuit diagram to go off if I make any mistakes, but I guess I can rely on that to some extent. So I'm hoping that that will have a good outcome anyway. Well, that's it for the recap for now anyway. I've done just about everything except this capacitor here, which says on the side of it, I think, 0.0, well, it doesn't say point anything, it says 0001 microfarad, MFD. Now, whether there's a decimal point in there or not, I don't know. I don't have any 0.0001 mic caps to replace it with, and yeah, it could be a 0.001. I don't really know. There was another cap marked like that as well. So that's a bit of an unknown quantity. I don't have a capacitor tester that I can test it with. I did put a meter across it, and it could be that there's other things in parallel with it that are stuffing up the reading, but it did show some, I think only about 20k across it. So if it's leaky to that extent, it'll have to go, but I'll have to look at its position in the circuit and what it might be, whether a 0.0001 cap would be appropriate in that location or what, I don't know. Also, this resistor here, which is just red, it doesn't have an end colour or a dot on it, so I presume it's red. But it measures 42k, so if that's the case, it's well and truly over spec. Everything else seems to be pretty much on spec, the resistors anyway. So I think we're okay there. This electrolytic capacitor that was in the front here, it was sitting here. I've replaced it, it was 2.8 microfarad caps. I've replaced it with a single 16 mic cap, 600 volt one. And the plan is I'm going to make up a box that looks like this, print off a label on brownish paper or something, and make a box that just sits over the 16 mic cap. I was going to look at restuffing this, but it really is too far gone. This looks like just solid wax in there, so I will have a go at melting it out and seeing what's inside it, but it seems to be mostly wax. Any case, I don't think I might be able to salvage this and make it look decent, but I suspect that I'll probably have to start again from scratch. Here we go, capacity 8 and 8 MFD. Maximum working DC voltage 550. Polarity must be observed. And I noticed where it says after guarantee for 12 months, there's a faint C9 printed down there. You probably can't see that. I'm wondering if that's a date code. Maybe it's 1939. I don't know, but just guessing. I haven't found any other dates on this anywhere. Anyway, so now I need to turn it over, hook up the field coil for the speaker and the output transformer. These wires go to the heater string to the dial globes, so I'll have to put that together. I'll do that in a minute, but I'll just take it off its little stand here so I can get at it better. Well, it's going along nicely. I've installed the speaker, wired up the output transformer and the field coil, and I'm just about to put in the dial lights. Now these are part of the heater string, and normally one side of these globes goes to ground and the other side's just a positive, but in this case you certainly can't do that, and I have to be very careful that this just doesn't touch ground. Now this was originally attached by this first hole here, and it sat inside the speaker here, and it is perilously close to the aluminium edge of this dial, and so I couldn't find a way where it didn't touch the dial and it didn't touch the speaker cone, which is another consideration because this thing is just right against the edge of the speaker cone here. So I've decided to mount them in the second hole. I don't like to change the way things were originally done, but I've tried it, and with the globe in, that will light up the back of the dial, and it misses a speaker cone, and it reduces the danger of this thing touching ground. So I'm going to do them that way. I hope it's all right. I mean, it's not quite the way the thing was built. It should have been in there. I may not get as good a dial lighting, but I don't care. I don't want this thing touching ground, so I'm going to do it that way. Other than that, it's all going to plan, I guess. Still a bit of messy stuff to do. Just moving up here at the top of the tuning capacitor. I haven't really tidied that up yet. I'm not sure what this is here. It measures 24K, but I'm pretty sure it's a capacitor, so it must be very leaky if it is. This will be a cap because this is on the aerial line coming in and straight into the aerial coil. It's got no value marked on it, but it doesn't seem to be shorted, so I'll just leave it alone, I think. Well, I've put the chassis aside for the moment, and I thought it's about time I had a look at this cabinet. It's a nice little cabinet. I quite like it. There's only one obvious issue that I have to fix here, and that is this part where the top panel has lifted, and it takes quite a bit of force to push it down, so I'm not 100% confident that I can just glue that and it'll stay put. I'll try it, but I may have to try and pull it in from underneath or find some way of bending that other than just gluing it. Now inside it has, I don't know if you can see that, there's an asbestos sheet there, and there was another one in the top. I've sprayed this one with clear lacquer to stop any fibres getting out of it, and the one on the top I've taken out wearing a mask and sprayed it with epoxy enamel, and it's drying at the moment, so I'll leave that one be and I'll put it back in when we've finished. I'll possibly do the same epoxy enamel with this one. At the moment I'm happy enough to work on it with the clear lacquer sprayed on it. You can't see it, but it is sprayed. So I can see in here, and you probably can't see that there's a gap on the inside as well there. So this whole top panel is kicked up a little bit in the corner. I might, well, pushes down okay. I might try and clean out under there and get some glue in there, some PVA adhesive. If that doesn't work, I think the whole thing might have to come off. Or I can sand this off, wet it, see if I can steam it back down. But I'll try the glue first. That might just do the trick for us. Okay, I put some tape on it, partly to avoid damage to the timber and partly to stop any glue from getting onto it. and I'm just going to work through this with an old hacksaw blade just to clear out any debris that's in there. It does feel like there's some obstacle in there, maybe an old nail or fastener. I couldn't see anything on the inside. There is something sticking up there though that I can feel, and it's about there. I'll have another look on the inside and see if I can see what that might be. And not seeing anything obvious anyway. Oh, I see, yep, I'm just hitting another piece of timber in there. Okay, I've just put some strong PVA adhesive down there. That should be okay in there. So now I'm just going to clamp it with a couple of pieces of timber. One up there. One here. And that's pulling it in. Oh, I didn't like the sound of that. What's happening there? I don't want to be breaking anything. I'm not sure. I'm just going to back that off and see what's making crunching noises. Nothing that I can see. Putting it on this way. Okay. That's pulling it in pretty well, but I'm going to put another large clamp on the outside. I don't think there's anything underneath that's going to be harmed, is it? And I'm not sure if that front panel might be kicking out a little bit there, so I'm going to put one in there with a little bit of adhesive as well. Yeah, that is pulling in slightly, so I'm glad I did that. I'll just clean it up with a cotton bud. Don't want glue getting everywhere. And that That is just onto the surface of the wood there, but I'll get that off okay. Alright, well I'm going to leave that there for, I'll probably give it 24 hours. I want this to really set before I release the pressure on those clamps. So I'll come back tomorrow afternoon, which will be Friday, which is good. Gives me the weekend to work on it. And we'll see how that's gone. Hopefully it will hold together well. Well, it's cooler in the shed at night, and I thought while I'm waiting for this cabinet to dry, I'd have a go at this electrolytic capacitor, or condenser as it's called on the label. And as I said before, it's two 8UF dry electrolytic capacitors. I was hoping to just restuff this, but looking at the other side of it, it really is a mess. This side was just corroded through. I've tried opening up, and it seems to be pretty much solid wax inside. That looks like candle wax or something. So I'm going to have a go at melting it out with this heat gun. So let's see how we go with that. Come on, you know you want to be free. I've got the wire going through there. Okay. That's one out. There we go. I doubt that they were very healthy anyway. Well, I think I've burnt that a bit with the heat gun. The packaging, yep, that will be salvageable. I'll just have to scrape this wax off it. I can at least make a good copy of that and duplicate it. Well, it's Saturday morning and this thing's been clamped up since Thursday night, so if it isn't glued up now, it never will be. I guess I'll start by taking this one off. And yeah, it's not springing back, so that's good. Now, this one on the inside. As I undo it, no, I'm not seeing any movement in the case, so that's all right. That's going to fall out in a second. There we go. Now, this one across the outside has me a little bit worried. It's holding most of the pressure, and it was quite springy. I'll just slowly release it and see if it springs back. If it does, I'm going to do it up again and put some screws in from the inside to try and hold it in place. But just releasing the pressure now, and it looks like it's staying put. Yeah, look, that didn't move at all that I could see. Let's take this tape off. and the varnish is coming off with it. I think it'll be easy enough to strip this cabinet. I don't know what sort of varnish it is though. I'll do a check on it shortly. I suspect it might be shellac. That's hard to know. But that looks pretty good. I'll take that out now too. Yeah, it's not bad. That's it, it's sitting nice and straight. I'm still not sure what these marks here are, but it looks like paint, and I scraped it off this side, and really there's a slight mark in the grain there, but it's a lot less obvious than the paint that was over it. So I don't know why, because I'm going to strip this anyway. Well, maybe I won't, maybe I'll just rub it back. That looks like just a natural mark in the wood. Let's see if I can bring it closer and get it to focus. There we go. Now that's like a, well, not a knot hole, but something like that. And someone's obviously tried to cover it up by putting some sort of paint or something over it and made it worse than what it originally was. Now the next question, since that comes off so smoothly, do I just razor blade this and rub it back with very fine paper, or do I try and strip it? Probably the rest of this will need stripping, but I don't want to do more than I have to. I'd like to try and preserve the original finish where I can, and that might be on the sides and the front perhaps. The sides are not too bad. That's good. The top is pretty bad. I don't think I could do much with that. That'll have to be stripped off. Anyway, it's warming up in here already. 35 degrees according to the thermometer, and it's about 8:30 in the morning. So it's going to be a hot one. I might move outside and work on the table out the back under the tree. That's always nice and cool. So I've moved outside and I'm just working on replacing this old electrolytic capacitor. I've made up a little box with two 8 mic caps in it, and that will fit together in here. My partner made up this facsimile of the label. I'm hopeless at that sort of thing, so this has worked out well, and this is cut out of a paper shopping bag. So this will be the outer wrapping. It'll go over the box, and hopefully it'll all look pretty much the same as the original. Just taking the speaker baffle out of the cabinet here, and it should just and there we go. And the grill cloth's just in behind it, and it's not even glued down. I don't know what I can do with this. I'll try and clean it. If I can't clean it, I have got some similar stuff. This is quite nice. Might do the trick. But I'll see what I can do with this. I don't know if this is original or not. It's very thick. It's got 2 layers. Looks like it's been in there forever, so it could be original. Or one of these layers could be the original and someone's glued the other over the top of it. I don't know. Anyway, I'll soak this and see if it comes up okay. If not, I think we'll go to plan B. So it's about time I got started on this cabinet, and I'm still tossing up what to do with it. Whether to sand it off or whether to use paint stripper. Now along the side here there's this band of light coloured material. I don't know quite what it is, whether it's timber stripping or some kind of paint. In any case, I don't want to just take it off because I suspect I might have trouble reproducing that. And these fluted pieces down the corner seem to have a similar finish, although they look a little bit more like wood. It really is hard to tell. I think they are wood, which means that this is possibly timber banding, in which case, even if it is, I don't necessarily want to take it off. I'll probably take the varnish off the top of it and hopefully leave the underside. There's a little bit of muck in the corner there. I'll just take that out. Yeah, I might try gently scraping that with a razor blade and see what's underneath. Yes, it's not paint, it's a light coloured timber banding. So that means that I can sand it without worrying too much. So I don't know how thick this is. Not terribly thick, I don't think. So I might just try sanding this off. I'll start with 120 grit and then go back down to 240 and then 600 probably. But for now I'll just give it a go over with 120 and see how we go. This is the scary bit. Just getting through the surface now, and you can tell when you've got through the varnish surface by the colour of the dust that comes off. It starts to go wood colour, so that's when I stop, and then I'll treat it with finer paper. You can still see some varnish up the top end here. There's quite a nice timber colour there. I'll leave those marks in it. They're patina. I don't want to take it too far back. But that's good. This banding on the edge is definitely timber, and it's going to come up nicely, and it'll probably go like a golden yellow colour. And there's the breeze. The Fremantle Doctor come to cool us down. I found this angle cut piece of wood works pretty well for getting into corners. Just fold the paper over it and sand and sand and sand. So I took the radio over to Ron's place. Ron kindly offered to test the valves for me. I left the set with him because I had to get back to work. Next thing you know, he's texting me and saying, "Oh, your radio's talking to me." Okay, you beauty. So I've come back to collect it, and here we are. We've got it working on the bench here.
Yes, it's through that single axis. It's all filtered through. Cool. So Cole figured that he was a commentator. He was a player before, obviously.
That sounded pretty good.
Very good, Glenn. What did you love about him? Just
you're probably not going to get much more out of it than that anyway, really.
Yeah.
That's just all tacked onto. That's got to be all.
Yeah, well, I have to pull it all apart anyway and put the switch on and adjust the brake.
Big, heavy affair. You know, it takes a long time to bloody warm up to its temperature. That's why you get a bit of distortion first up.
Okay, yeah, it's standing a little bit distorted now, but
it'll come up good.
It'll come up good, yeah.
I realised this. I think Jeff is the oldest winner of the
Actually, I was going to take this off and measure it, see if I could get a capacitance measurement on it.
That's the point, yeah, because I haven't got a meter that does capacitance.
So if you like, I'll do that while we're here.
All right, may as well, yeah.
So anyway, your long wave's working.
Yeah.
There's something there, but I hear carrier.
If there was anything on it.
Well, I'm not sure which end it is, but sometimes you'll pick up the airport beacon. They'll give you the time and the weather and the temperature and the wind velocity. You know, that's somewhere. In fact, you might get it because you're close to the airport.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, good-o. Well, I've got it home now, and I thought I'd see what I could pick up on long wave. So I've got it set up for long wave. There's also a bit of an issue with the volume control in that it's still quite loud at minimum volume, so I'll have to have a look at that. In the meantime, the most effective volume control I've got is a Variac, so I'll just turn that up to around 220 volts, and any moment now we should hear something. The other thing is I've got an isolation transformer here, so quite happy to touch the chassis, and here we have
below 1 or 2,000 feet. Temperature. With terminal information, Zulu and aerodrome weather information service power closed. Restricted areas deactivated. CPAS 118.3. Preferred runway 18. Wind 210 degrees magnetic 16 knots. Visibility 20 kilometers. Cloud clear below 1 or 2,000 feet. Temperature 40. UNH 1007 hectopascals. Rainfall last 10 minutes. News. With terminal information.
So that's obviously Perth Airport terminal information. There's not much else around here. A few carriers.
2 kilometers. Cloud clear below 1 or 2,000 feet. Temperature 41. UNH 1007.
So yeah, that's about it for long wave, but at least we know it works. Okay, so I've got it switched to AM now, and it seems to be quite sensitive. I've got the Variac dialed right back down now, but if I bring it up to say 200 volts, and in a moment it will pick up.
Screen. So unlike the notification and distraction-filled experience of looking at a mobile phone. Cultural artefacts, from wing-roll to punch and judy, from village fetes to country fairs, and from the circus to the cinema, live on because older generates inculcate in the younger ones a love for the things they love. As long as parents introduce cinema to their children and help them form memories of being spirited to another.
Now that sounds quite distorted. It's not the kind of sound I would be happy to listen to every day. And looking over the speaker, I can pretty much see the reason why. So now we're looking at the back of the speaker, and you can see the back of the voice coil still outside of the field magnet. You can see the end of the coil there. That can't be good, and it certainly won't do much for the sound. So I can see I'm going to have to do a bit more fettling with the speaker before we're finished. Well, I've finished rubbing down the cabinet. I went over it with, started with 240, started with 180 I think, 240, and then I finished off with 400. And I don't have any 600, well I have got a little bit of 600, but I don't think it needs it. It feels very, very smooth. And I'm wondering where we go from here. I don't know if this needs grain filling. The grain is so tight on it, it may not be necessary. But some of the grain at the side I think will need filling, so I may as well grain fill the whole lot, but I thought what I would do is maybe give it a coat of shellac just to seal the surface and just see if I need to mess with the colour at all or whether it will be fine as it is. I prefer to leave it natural wood if I can. but possibly I could darken up the side panels a little bit to increase the contrast between this nice burl finish and the remainder of the cabinet. Anyway, I'll try some shellac on it and see how that goes. So I've got one of my old shellac rubbers, which was actually still okay, and probably need to bleed some shellac into that filler that I put in there. I hope that'll darken up. And I'll try and get in here. Now that'll take some work to get in there. I may need to brush it in. But I think that's going to look quite nice. Well, I've given the cabinet a couple of coats of shellac, and we're beginning to get an idea of what it's going to look like when it's finished, although the surface isn't what it will be. But it's looking pretty good. I still have to do the black banding around here and around the edges, down here. And I think once that's done, then I'll start finishing it properly. But this gives us a fair idea, and it's a nice little cabinet. I'm quite happy with it. So I'll let that dry off for a while now, and I'll get back into the chassis, see if I can sort out that speaker problem, and go from there. So when I put the speaker together, I remember, the dog next door is carrying on. There were a number of spaces underneath this spider, and I think if I can remove one or two of them, I might move the cone back far enough for me to just put it back in, and it might just sit where it's meant to sit. That, of course, is easier said than done. I don't want to damage the spider. At the same time, I don't want to have to take the cone out again either, because that's pretty thoroughly glued in, and I don't know if I could do it without damage. I've got it out. Now, how does the cone move? Okay, now put this on here. My old cone template from before. I just thought I'd better shim the voice coil before I put this on. So I've done that, and I'll just put it back on. And that's sitting just inside the field. So I've got the speaker back together, for better or worse. At least the voice coil is now sitting inside the air gap, which is probably a good thing. So I'll put the valves back in and see if that's made any improvement. I kind of hope it has, because I'm running out of options here. I don't know what else I can do to this speaker to make it any better. But if it still sounds very distorted, then I'll start to look for electrical reasons rather than mechanical ones. But that was pretty obvious, so I thought I may as well deal with that. It would have to be dealt with anyway. Then which comes next? The S1328. And this is the 1323, so it goes in the end. Okay. That's it. It scares me the way they snap on like that. Is that the way it goes, or is it the other way? That goes from the aerial coil straight into there, yeah, so it must be this way. And this one goes to the second gang, so it's the second stage. Yep, that makes sense. Now I'll put some tape on the dial lights because I haven't fitted them yet. I've just screwed the speaker back into place for somewhere to put it, tacked on the wiring. Now, will I use the dim bulb? I have been fiddling with it, so yeah, I think I'll hook it up with dim bulb. Okay, I think I got this right. The power point's connected to the isolation transformer. The isolation transformer is connected to the variac. The variac is plugged into the dim bulb. The dim bulb is plugged into the light socket, and the light socket adapter from the radio is plugged into that. So the theory is that when I turn this on, we should get power to the radio. And I'm not seeing anything. Is this on? No. Oh, put the dim bulb on. Yep, there we go. So I'll take that down to 200 volts. And wait, it does take a long time to warm up, so it may be some time before we hear anything. Oh, an aerial would be handy too. That should do the trick. The dim bulb is, I didn't even have it switched on, dim bulb. The dim bulb is glowing away. Let's move it up a little bit to 220 volts. That should be more than enough to make it work. And since that's not showing a dead short, I'll turn it off. Alright, we seem to have some sound now.
God bless you. And how about all the episodes ever?
What's this stuff down here? Oh, the area.
On ABC Radio.
Welcome back to Nightlife. Great to have your company as we ease into the last hours of the weekend. I hope it's been a good weekend for you. Well, time now to check in with another part of the world. And it's been a little over a week since that huge volcanic eruption off the coast of Tonga.
triggered tidal waves and ash clouds and cut the tiny nation off from the rest of the world. Well, the clean-up and rescue operation has been underway, and as communications slowly come back online, definitely clean water is still one of the major concerns. When I had some more contact today with the Vice President of the Tonga Red Cross Society, he was saying to me that
Well, that sounds better than it did. Still not wonderful. I've got quite a long aerial attached to it here, and I think it's overloading a bit. Being a TRF set, there is no AGC, no automatic gain control, so a very strong station will come in very strongly, and this one, even with the volume turned to the minimum, still comes through. I'm not sure if that's part of the reason for the distortion. I could try it on a shorter aerial and see what happens. In fact, before I finish, I'll do that. I'll try it on a shorter aerial and see if we get a better sound quality out of it.
Listeners who don't really understand the way Tonga is laid out and the number of islands, can you give us a sense of how many islands, particularly those
of course,
were
I
affected
earth
and damaged?
the chassis every time I touch it.
170 islands, not all of which are inhabited. You know, about 60 or 70 of those have got inhabitants on them, and the main island of Tonga.
Well, that wasn't a whole lot better. It was just quieter. It didn't reduce the distortion at all, or not to speak of. But it is working. It's talking to me, which is what I wanted, and probably sooner than I'd expected. So I think I'll call this the end of part 2 of the video, and we'll come back in part 3 with the cabinet, and I've got a lot of tweaking to do on this chassis, so hopefully I can get it performing better than this, and put it all together and see it finished, which will be a nice feeling. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you can join me in the shed for part 3.